I'm sure he's happy to be joining such a joyous occasion right now. He's from NBC Sports and Football Night in America. He will be on Westwood One's coverage of the Lions and Buccaneers game this Monday night. Devin, boy, it's just you just can't avoid us, can you? It's all over you are all over the Browns, just next to us. It's amazing.
I didn't know what to expect. I knew I was coming on. I was like, all right, what Cleveland stuff we're going to talk about? There's no game, and who would have thought the Thursday night game would put Cleveland front and forefront, just in the forefront of everything. Chance to thank you, Cleveland. Like, just a lot going on that I don't think I had the expectation this morning that it would be like that. But the performance by Joe Flacco last night was incredible. And I'm sure every Browns fan was wondering why they couldn't get that performance. But I understand. My brother played a year down there in Cleveland, so I got to experience a little bit of what it was like to be a Cleveland Brown through his eyesight and the fan base and how passionate they are about the Browns.
Devin, is it as easy as they've got Chase, they've got Higgins, and we don't? Or do you think it's more systemic of bigger failures within the Browns?
Oh, that's a loaded question. There is an element of no doubt. It's different playing quarterback when you're throwing to Higgins and Chase. But I do think, when you talk about Cleveland, once you start talking about, being a below average team year after year after year, me and my brother had a lot of conversations back in 2017 when they went 0-16. And he's always telling us, like, it starts at the top. And that's not just for the Cleveland Browns. That's a lot of organizations that if you're not aligned from the top all the way throughout, you're going to have issues. And I think the hard thing for Cleveland is they've never had, I won't say never, but the last, 20 to 30 years, there's never really been a season or 3 seasons in a row where you're like, man, the alignment here is great and we're going to ride this run. It's just like, you make a playoff appearance, then it's right back to that. It's just, I think that's been the hard thing. So I think it's a little bit of everything thrown in there when you talk about the Joe Flacco situation.
Devin McCourty joining us here on the show. So when they traded Joe Flacco, what was your initial reaction when you saw that news?
So I thought, kind of weird in the division, but then I also was like, I don't know if Cleveland's thinking about making the playoffs. Like, that was the impression I got of this season is not as important to us from a playoff standpoint and trying to do well. This is about the future. So rather than us have a guy sit here on our bench, we don't really care what happens this year. We rather get the draft pick and be able to say this will make us better in the future. That was my initial thought of it, and I'm sure just like them, I don't think they thought that would lead to Flacco playing the way he did, but I think that's what you got to kind of think about when you do make a trade.
Well, just in thinking about, the games where the Browns had Joe Flacco, they couldn't protect him, and he looked slow, and then the mistakes started to pile up. And Joe's always been a risk-reward type of guy that's going to put the ball out there and make mistakes. He'll probably make some mistakes, for the Bengals trying to hold this down until, Joe Burrow can come back. But we didn't see anything like this time around. What we saw, 2 years ago with Flacco when the Browns made that playoff run with him was that. He was airing it out. But, they had better receivers at the time. The offensive line was nothing like it is now. It's really bad right now, Devin. And I don't know how the Browns can make up for it. And trotting out a rookie quarterback, he has just had his issues too. Mm-hmm. The Steelers swarmed all over him.
Yeah, it's tough, man. 'Cause, I think about, I was watching, I watched back the Cleveland-Detroit game, and it was a back and forth, and I thought Cleveland, their defense has really played their butts off when you've watched games of keeping them in games, whether it was the Green Bay win, but that game in particular, they had key moments in the game, and there was a possession where Jerry Jeudy dropped a deep ball and then Harold Fannin dropped a deep ball, where I was like, those sometimes are the differences in games for a quarterback like Joe Flacco, for an offensive line that's struggling a little bit up. We have these key plays that if we can turn them into touchdowns early in a game, now we get the team that we're on the road, this team's home, they're supposed to be better than us. Now we get and we apply a little pressure on them. And I think that was also a little bit of Cleveland's issue of when Flacco did sometimes make the good play, it didn't get capitalized on. And we have an older quarterback. You watch the Steelers last night. You watch the Bengals. You have to keep them clean. You have to be able to get the ball out of their hands fast. And the only time you really want to see them hold it is if the protection is great or you get in the red zone. And I think that was a struggle for Cleveland up. Everything didn't just marry up when they needed it. It was like, man, we're doing okay, but then that big break that comes in the game, they didn't take advantage, and I think that's what led them. It's not like they've just been getting blown out in every game. They've been competitive in a good amount of those games, and I agree with you. Now you say, hey, this 40-year-old veteran couldn't get it done. We're going to turn to Dylan Gabriel, and some of those same issues are going to be there. He's going to have to navigate it, but it's going to be up and down. There's going to be some good games, then there's going to be some really bad games. I think for them, it's how do we close out the Minnesota Vikings? How do we close out the games where we actually play well, we're moving the ball, good things are happening? How do we now find a way to make one more play to win? I think if you can do that a few times this year, you carry that into next year. You carry that good feeling about, hey, we couldn't do it all the time, but we showed that this is the recipe for if we want to win, we have to do it like this.
Devin, this is going to be a weird way to phrase it. I just got to come out and say it. Do you think Kevin is a good coach?
I do. I do think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. I think when you break down that team, when they've had the ability to build a team the way that I think he's successful, the personnel grouping, like right now, they have a really good personnel grouping of you have Njoku, you have Fan in that tight end, so you can do these 2-3 tight end sets. You have a bruiser running back in Judkins, and now you're saying, okay, we're going to put this offense out there. If you come out and you try to match us, then we're going to spread these guys out. We have weapons that are really hard to cover, or we can power run, and they've had that, and then they have a good defense. The problem is now they don't have a quarterback. The quarterback they had is an MVP candidate. Like when you think about that, the quarterback that was in Cleveland, I think if you ask a lot of the NFL, they would say through 6 weeks of the season, now going on 7 weeks, Baker Mayfield is the MVP of the NFL. And I think that speaks to what you first asked me of, why can't we get things right? Is it the players? Is it the coaching staff? Like, it's above that of like, how come we couldn't find a way to keep this guy in the building? How come we couldn't find a way to realize that potential? Why was it us to start? Then it was the Carolina Panthers. Like, you look at those two franchises who couldn't make it work with this guy. And then this guy not only leaves there, he follows up Tom Brady in Tampa. The worst job in America, he goes and he succeeds at. I think that speaks to more than Stefanski. And I think that's some of the problems for some of these organizations are they get rid of coaches every 1.5, maybe 2.5 years, and they act like it's always the coach. You see the Jets doing that right now. It's always the coach. We need a new coach. We need a new coach. And then you kind of look and you're like, all right, we've had 4 different coaches, but our product is still the same. Maybe it's not the coach, So I do think he's a good coach. I think, in this league, he's been able to have a couple runs in there that I think have kept him there. But I think this team is going to need to win some games, or just how the NFL works. Pressure, hot seat, all that stuff starts to come up. But I think Stefanski's one of those guys that even if he's not in Cleveland, he's got to get back on his feet, and he's a good coach. He'll be successful somewhere.
Devin McCourty with us on the hotline. Quickly with Shedeur Sanders, the conversation, got to say here locally, even with Gabriel playing the way he did, it actually kind of quieted down, because I think Shedeur, some of his loyalist fans are like, I don't know if we want to see Shedeur behind that offensive line with those weapons. Are you still really excited to see him? Do you think he could be a difference maker?
Yeah, I think for both those young quarterbacks, I think coming out of college, Shedeur was a way more popular prospect. And I'm not going to pretend that I went back and studied these guys in their college film, but I think what Shedeur brings to an organization, he brings a little bit of hope that if he gets in, and I don't know if Cleveland's thinking about that. If he does get in there and it doesn't go well, then now I think that kind of closes the door on all hope for any situation that they have there going on right now. But I think for Shedeur, he has to keep doing the things he needs to be doing, that when that opportunity comes, because when you move into that backup role, you have no idea when that opportunity is going to come knocking. Like, it might be in the middle of a game and you're thrust in there. You got to make sure you're ready to go. And I think for him, me personally, I think sometimes being quiet and not being heard from, but just slowly preparing and doing what you need to do, so when your number is called, you're ready to go. I think that's more of my approach. And I think that's not his, and there's a lot going on. And I think Cleveland, again, going back to when you build something, they should have known when you draft a Dylan Gabriel before you draft a Shedeur Sanders, the noise that's going to come from that. And that's exactly what we all expected to happen on draft day, and now it's happening. And I think the noise quieted a little bit, but I think in the next 2 to 3 games, if Dylan Gabriel's not performing, you're going to hear people like they're going to be screaming for Shedeur Sanders to get in the game. And then for Stefanski, what do you do? Like, you're evaluating the practice film every day. Like, I don't know what that practice film looks like, but if Shedeur's not quite ready and you think Dylan Gabriel's better, you're eventually going to have to put Shedeur in there anyway, because I think that's just how the league works. So it seems like a messy situation ahead. But, I mean, then again, like, it feels like that is the Cleveland Browns.
I don't even think he thought Dylan was ready this time a couple weeks ago. And I just go because it bothers me so much, Devin, because, again, they call each other, like, the term is thought partners, right? That's not the word I said. They said it, right? So it's weird where everything's supposed to be in lockstep, but I go, clearly he was excited about Kenny Pickett. Boom, you traded him. And I'm not even the biggest fan of Kenny Pickett, but they're supposed to know more than me, right? And then they had Joe Flacco. I like Joe Flacco. Boom, they traded him. And I'm thinking, man, okay, if you're not going to win for the veterans, I understand things are not always going to go the best way possible. But if you also want to see what you have out of your quarterbacks, I just don't think that just throwing them out there is the best thing to do it. Don't you want them to be prepared? Because if they're not as prepared as you could possibly make them, then we're just setting ourselves up for failure, and we'll never get a true idea who they are.
Yeah, I think back to last year in New England, with Drake May, you have all these quarterbacks that come out, and, I'll throw Michael Penix Jr. in there too. But you have these guys come out, and like Caleb Williams is playing right away. Jaden Daniels is out there. I mean, he's playing at such a high level. Bo Nix is playing. And now you have Drake May is on this Patriots team that's not very good. And everybody is sitting there through the first 4 weeks of like, this is ridiculous. Drake May needs to be in there. And forever, whatever people think of what Gerard Mayo was as a head coach, I think there was something to it. Like, I remember talking to those guys, and they were saying he's just not ready. Like, we want to put him in there, like, if he can help us win. But they're like, they believed at the time that they were going to be there for the long haul. And they were like, we just feel like putting him in there before he's ready will do more damage. And he gets in there week 4, week 5. And then next thing you know, you end the season, and everybody ended the season last year in New England like, we found a guy. We found our quarterback. And I think a part of that was him not feeling the pressure of going in there before he was ready. And I agree with you. There's something to that. And I think we've seen that with, call it Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, like all of these guys that are now having success other places. I think a lot of that stemmed from they just weren't ready to go in the game in that moment that they had to go in. So then they took the lumps. Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett says it to me all the time. That one position in the NFL is not seen as a developmental position. People want to get quarterbacks that they think are ready to go right now. They have to go perform. And if they don't, it's like, well, he's just a backup. He's no good. He's in. And then that guy's just thrown away. When we really look at it, some of these quarterbacks, all it took was, 2-3 years for them to actually develop. And now they are playing their best football. So I think there is something to that. I think for Dylan Gabriel, hopefully it works out. But I do think, like, we might be sitting here saying, man, if this guy would just had time to develop and learn the NFL ways and NFL scheme, he could have been a good quarterback. But he got thrown in there right away, and now that's it. That's my biggest concern.
You'll see him Sunday night. You can hear him Monday night. Westwood One's coverage of the Lions and Buccaneers on Westwood One, right here on the Fan. Lions, Buccaneers, Devin McCourty, former NFLer. Great guy, great player. Devin, thank you very much for the time. You've been gracious. All the best.
No problem. You guys have a good one.
Devin McCourty, NBC Sports Football Night in America, as well as he'll be on Westwood One's coverage with, I believe, Kevin Harlan of the Lions and Bucks. Great.